Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A new season of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series is now just 1 hour away, and with it, we introduce you to RaceSpot presents the WCS Spotlight podcast. Wil Vincent, along with Nick Rowland and Blake Townend, every day that there is a WCS race, we'll be with you 1 hour before the race, breaking everything that is going on in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. We'll also take a look at the peak antifreeze NASCAR series as well, every single time that there is a race on both PSRTV and on RaceSpot. I am going to come immediately to you, Nick. It's a new season, and there are some great drivers in the WCS this year. However, that big battle is, of course, between Gregor Huttu, Hugo Louise. Gregor Huttu, now a three-time champion. Hugo Louise hoping to get his second title after a season that started so well last year, then kind of slipped up in the middle.
Certainly did. It was a fantastic season to watch, and we're in for another great one with all the drivers that have actually entered once again, and the people that we have racing. But you've got to say Huttu against Louise is going to be the main one once again. And Huttu, you have to say, based off the past years, he's going to be the man to beat again.
Now, Gregor Huttu, of course, now being a three-time champion, winning the championship the first time that the WCS took place, and also in the last 2 years. And that momentum is really going to carry on from him. And he's got a great set of drivers on that Team Redline team. He's got Luke McLean, Atze Kerkhof. We'll be chatting with him in just a little bit. The ever-controversial Ben Cornett. And Blake, they've got a new driver in that Team Redline stable in Enzo Benito. Really, for Benito, that is the golden ticket of sim racing being picked up by Team Redline.
That is, and it shows you how talented Enzo is to be picked up by, one of the quickest teams in sim racing history is pretty good for him. So it'll be quite interesting to see how well he copes within that team throughout the whole season.
But for Louise, though, Nick, the question is going to be, can he keep that momentum going all season long? Now, last year he had things that went on, with his teammates. He had that issue with Martin Kroenke early on in the race at Sebring, which arguably cost him the win there. He had that first lap crash with his teammate, Martin Kroenke, at Watkins Glen. And then he didn't really have many of his teammates running in the series for that middle part of the season when Huttu became so dominant. For Louise, is it going to be a case, do you think, of him having to, I'm trying to find the word here, just, have that team support? And as a driver yourself, you run in sim racing. How important is that team support when the going gets tough in the mid-season?
Well, he's fighting two battles, essentially. He's fighting an inter-team battle and also the battle against every other driver on track, namely, Huttu. It's a case of how much the team actually want to support him, and do they sort of say, you are the lead driver, therefore the other drivers have to support you? Or, where do you draw the line? At the end of the day, he is the fastest driver probably within that team. Therefore, you would think you support him and you let him run and go and get Huttu sort of thing. It's a very fine line, though, because you still want to see racing. You want people to race. As a team manager myself, it's difficult to balance the two. You want them to race, but you also want your team to have the maximum amount as well. So there must come a point where I think it's the team to say, look, there is a line. We need to support one or the other driver, maybe whoever is leading and going against Huttu. But he's essentially fighting two battles, and one the team will probably have to decide on, and another one that he's basically just have to race for himself. But it will get very, very difficult at the point where drivers within his own team battle against him, especially if he's the guy going for the championship. If he's leading the way and, they start battling and Huttu snatches a victory somewhere, it's just going to go down the pan the same as the way he did it last year.
And you talk about that for 3ID Motorsports. They renamed themselves from My 3ID Gaming to just being 3ID Motorsports for the 2014 campaign. But on the Team Redline side of things, you have got, for example, Atze Kerkhof. He got one victory last year, 2 victories the year before. And some people say that, he is, in many ways, Huttu's closest rival. Could that same thing apply over in the Team Redline stable, where if they start fighting with each other for points and, they start swapping victories, or, their fights mean that, Louise can slip by on strategy, for example, or outrace them, is that going to potentially be an issue over there on the Redline camp?
Yeah, it'll be the same thing. You'll have the same principle applied to both sets, both camps. Two drivers, two teams going against each other for a top position. The problem is, obviously, it is only two teams. It's not four teams. So you have inter-team rivalry against two teams going against each other for a title. Two titles, in fact. So, there is such a manner that the team managers will have to play this year, and a role that it will have to play to make sure it doesn't happen and it doesn't actually affect teams in their title hunts.
Well, there are many more teams, of course, than just Team Redline and Pre-ID Motorsport. There are a couple of really big changes. And, Blake, really the two real big ones is Glacier Racing. You've got Rico Italo, Alexia Loma, Oli Pacala, and Alexia Uciacola. They've really kind of formed that stable, which was lagging the last couple of years. And then you've also got the Apex Racing UK charge, which I think, led by Alex Simpson, really could be one of the big dark horses of this year, because Apex Racing UK have just been dominant in everything they have been in on the way up to the WCS.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see new teams coming, and some very quick drivers on both teams as well. So I do expect to see most of the drivers to create some unexpected surprises come the race and down the line.
And a couple of teams have kind of strengthened their lineup a little bit. Most notably, in my eyes, Radicals got themselves a new sponsor, also get themselves a new driver, Blake. You got yourself a new teammate in Jonas Nakurian, making his first visit to the World Championship Series.
Blake doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, it's great to see Jonas competing with us. He did a great job in the Pro Series, and hopefully we'll see him racing today. So it's pretty cool, and obviously we've got a new sponsorship as well. So yeah, that's great for us, and I think it's great for the championship as well.
And Nick, when you have a look at these team sizes, they really do fluctuate between, you've got a couple of one-car teams. Fulvio Barazzini, for example, pretty much in that Triple M team all by himself this year after losing a couple of teammates in the off-season. Friction Racing with Michel Mancusi, just a one-team lineup as it stands right now. Same for Christian Laurent for the GT Ross team. But then you've got a total of 6 drivers on INX Racing, 6 drivers on 3ID Motorsports. You've got 4 drivers on the Radicals, the Orion and the Apex Racing UK teams, and then also on Redline Twister Racing. So is that an advantage to have a big team? Is it a disadvantage? And what does that also mean for the one-car outfits? Is there more pressure upon them, or is that pressure taken away from them, knowing that it's really their own destiny?
The one-car teams more so, probably the pressure's off more so, because they can go and fight exactly as they want. It's one car, one team, and they can go and do what they want. And if you start to see drivers progressing through the field, and you get to see sort of the rawness of that drive, and also how good they are with developing a setup, and actually how quick they are. And you may turn around that one of the drivers gets picked up for one of those one-car teams because of how good they are. The development rate you can actually see with those drivers. So it's really given those one-car teams and drivers the opportunity to show themselves against everyone else and show just how good they are or could potentially be. So I think it's actually, pressure's off, but all for them to maximise and capitalise on.
Now, the schedule this year, it's a long schedule, as it always is in the World Championship Series, and it is spread out over a number of months. We'll run through the first couple of races. They will be live on PSRTV. In fact, the first one of those races going live in just 50 minutes' time at the majestic, famous Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. 2 weeks' time, we then head over to Interlagos. 71 laps of drooling racing there at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Paz, and then we hand it over to RaceBot for the majority of the rest of the season. Their coverage will start on March 29th at the Suzuka circuit, and that will take you all the way down to the final race of the season, which will be at the Circuit of the Americas early in October. And Blake, I'm going to have to go right to the end of the season. COTA, it's going to be a great race, and if the championship goes down to the wire, can you imagine that start and the passing opportunities down in Turn 1?
It's going to be pretty awesome. Turn 1 and a few other corners are very open wide, so I expect to see maybe some dive bombs, some naughty driving going on there, just to capitalise on on people being unaware during the race. So I can't wait. It's going to be it's a great circuit, and for it to come down to the wire, that'd be pretty cool as well.
And Nick, of course, we make 2 visits every year to circuit, this Spa-Francorchamps, one in March, then one in the traditional August slot. Spa, everyone knows Spa. If you're a sim racer, it's always your dream in many ways to become fast at Spa, because it means that really you've accomplished something as a sim racer. But there are some drivers who don't like it, and it is a very difficult track to get to grip with.
It's a lot to do with car setup as well. It depends on what you go for. A lot of drivers will like the lesser downforce and go for the straight line speed. The run through Blanchimont along the Kemmel Straight as well. Those in particular, the drivers will actually go for lower downforce to capitalise there. But then you've got the tight infield section. The drivers will actually use more downforce. So I think it's very much a case of what the driver prefers and how you balance the car. But you're right. I think drivers. It's a very old school style track, and it depends if you can cope with that speed enough. A lot of the newer drivers, obviously coming into sim racing, and it reflects a lot with Formula One. These new tracks are very tight, technical, heavy braking zones, and I don't think a lot of the newer drivers are able to experience it, whereas the older drivers, such as Hutu now, can fly on these tracks, and I think that's what you got the difference of.
And we start a season with one of the slowest corners in all of sim racing, the La Source hairpin. You're on the grid. You're about to kick off perhaps your first World Championship season. For some, it'll be their 5th World Championship season. But you're all going to have to go down to that first corner, slow down to 30 miles an hour, get through then. Then you've got to run down a hill, flick left into Air Rouge, then flick right into Adilio, then flick left, then go down the Kemmel straightaway, and you're probably not even taking a single breath. For some drivers, though, their first race in the WCS could be over within about 15 seconds, Nick.
Yeah, that's
It's okay, either of you can talk.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was quite funny because when I first started in 2011, I just managed to qualify after having computer issues, and I got up to La Source and that was it. It was all over for me. So it's going to be pretty hairy entering turn 1 with 35 drivers on the grid. Everyone's trying to make a good impression, especially the new guys. And I think the new guys that are new for this year are certainly going to feel the pressure because it's the top of the game. And also they're going to be broadcasted as well, so there's going to be tons of pressure. There's definitely going to be some perhaps mayhem, but we'll have to wait and see.
Nick, thoughts?
I think the other thing with turn 1 La Source as well is that the drivers will approach it and they'll try and capitalise as much as they can. So any driver behind, they also want to push as much as they can into turn 1. Because even if a driver runs wide out of La Source, the driver on the inside is likely to have more speed and try and beat them on the entry of Eau Rouge. So you've got to watch those drivers coming from behind who probably taking a larger risk to dive maybe and square the corner off more so and get that run towards Eau Rouge.
Right.
A bit like Kimi.
Yeah, literally just like Kimi. We are now going to hand it over to a pre-recorded. We do have to say this is pre-recorded, but you can leave your thoughts in the YouTube page if you're watching, or don't forget you can follow us on Twitter as well at RacebotTV. But this is an interview that I did with the driver of the number 2 team at Atze Kerkhof, or Team Redline. It's Atze Kerkhof. He's not actually going to be racing in the first round of the season, which is why we had to do this a couple of days ago. But guys, enjoy. This interview is amazing. Okay, then our big interview this week is with the driver of the number 2 Team Redline Fanatic machine. It is Holland's fastest sim racer, Atze Kerkhof. Atze, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, 2013 in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series was by far your best year. You managed to get yourself a victory at your home track and you came second in the championship, beating one of your closest rivals, Hugo Luis.
Yeah, absolutely. 2013 was one of my breakthrough years. I learned a lot throughout the year. The beginning of the year wasn't really successful. I was But you know, the main target that season was to be efficient, getting stable results, doing good qualifications, and work really hard on that. And in the end, it paid out really, and I still had a shot for second position, so I went all out with a couple of races to go. And yeah, it really worked out well, resulting in me taking second position in the championship. Really happy with that, yeah.
And really, the highlight of your season's got to be that win at Zandvoort. It was the first race in the NTM V5. Ironically, the only race I didn't commentate for Glacier TV last year. But a great result for you. And to win at your home track really must have been special.
Yeah, there was. I think it was the race in Watkins Glen. I didn't make a lot of mistakes last season, but there, I just gave out the race win by spinning into the pit lane, and I was so annoyed by that. And after that, there was the Zandvoort Grand Prix. That was one of the first races where I put absolute full effort in practice, and I really wanted to win that race. And yeah, that paid out. It was an amazing race, and started from the lead and never gave it out. So yeah, that was one of the best memories of the season, indeed.
And your off-season has been incredibly busy. It's a great story, really, going from sim racing to real racing. Take us through what's happened in your off-season, because you've had the chance to test in a Formula 3 car, and that's led to some great opportunities for this year.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to keep it short a little, but actually it started in 2012, I think, when Richie joined our team, and I worked really hard with Richie to make him better, to learn him about sim racing, and he had incredible talent, but Richie, he wanted to practice for the real racing, of course, and so that's where we worked together in Team Redline. He drove the Pro Championship, and I was happy to help him with it, and yeah, in the end, he won that championship, and that's how we got into contact. We became good friends, and we had a lot of contact. And at the end, he introduced me to his old team, Van Amersfoort Racing, who, yeah, they are a professional Formula 3 team, active in the German Formula 3 and the European Formula 3. Richie was the 2011 German F3 champion with Van Amersfoort Racing. So, yeah, the link was quite easy for me. They invited me to their workshop, and we had this good conversation about top sport, about my speed skating in the past, and about sim racing and how those three things connect. And at the end of that conversation, they pretty much offered me, like, we really want to see you in a real car, a guy with your results in simulators and your background in top sport. You obviously you are fit enough and you can drive, but we want to see if you can make that link to a real racing car with real G-forces and actual walls around you. So yeah, that was an interesting conversation. So from there, I think that was 9 months before the actual test happened, and within those 9 months, I just had to focus on iRacing, and I was helping the team with their their team simulator. They had quite a cool simulator. They still have it, where they train their drivers and they test different drivers. So it was really cool for me to help them with setting lap times, comparing telemetry, and of course I could do, as a sim racer, good lap times where the drivers of the race team could take a lot of information from the race engineers. So that was quite an experience already, and basically we were working towards the test on several tests. The first planning was to test on Hockenheim in a Formula 3 car, but due to weather, that didn't happen. Of course, you don't want to do your first real race car test in the rain. So ultimately, it became Barcelona in December, and the weather was beautiful. So we worked towards that track. We trained a lot in the sim. Of course, you need to change some techniques. The brake pedal is completely different than the sim brake pedal setup you have at home. And it requires some changes in technique and some mental switches you need to switch off. And from there, it got closer and closer until the day actually happened.
Wow. And, of course, the big question's got to be, what is the difference for you really between sim racing, racing in the Grand Prix World Championship Series, and racing in, you know, a real live single-seater car? What are those big differences that you've had to adapt to?
Well, like I said, the braking technique is completely different, where you use quite a light braking technique in sim racing to be as quick as possible. In a real car, you need to push around 100 kilogram with one leg just to reach a proper amount of braking. And yeah, that requires a whole new way of driving, because you feel the car completely different. When I was driving on Barcelona the first morning in the morning, and the first laps around the track, you get so tensed up, and there's so much going on around you. The speed is overwhelming, the power, the noise of the engine, it's blowing your ears out, and yeah, there's just a lot to take care of. You need to get used to the whole shifting method of the driving. So everything actually was new, but I knew that was happening. I prepared mentally for that, of course, that everything is going to be completely overwhelming. But the target that day was to get used to all those things as quick as possible. Just get into that flow, that same flow you have in sim racing, where you create some sort of tunnel vision, where you don't think about what's going on around you, what will happen if you brake too late in a corner, and that kind of stuff. You want to be in that comfortable position, and of course that's much harder in a real car. The real car requires a lot of strength and a lot of endurance, and yeah, that was some of the things. That thing was mostly what pulled me off in the beginning, in the first laps. But yeah, I gotta say, after 6 or 10 laps, my neck was so hurt. I trained really hard, and I am really fit actually, but still my neck was completely messed up after a couple of laps in that Formula 3 car on Barcelona, especially turn 3, which is a 180 degrees turn, which is full throttle on the limit of grip. It pulls so many G-forces, and I never expected that to be that heavy. And if you drive on a limit of grip and your car is sliding around in 200 kilometers an hour, and you feel the car sliding, but at the same time you're really struggling physically to get the car under control, to catch the slides, it's really hard to feel the little details. So that makes you really insecure in the beginning. And the goal of that day was to get more into that groove, into that flow, and to handle those G-forces better, until you're at a point where you're basically relaxed. And at the end of the day, I could honestly say that it started to feel like sim racing again, where I was relaxed. I was able to handle the forces, and I was able to push further and further and take more risks.
Now, let's talk about your 2014 season. You are missing the first race. For those of you who haven't yet gathered, this is pre-recorded. But you will be racing as many races as you can this season, of course, dependent on what goes on, real-world racing, etc. What are your aims for 2014 after winning in both 2012 and 2013 in that Team Redline car?
Well, of course, I want to drive. I want to drive as much as possible, and I got this whole real-world chance because of driving in the simulators in iRacing, of course. But yeah, right now the focus is on retrieving sponsorship and making this real seed happen, and it requires a lot of work. You know, I need to get involved with management, and I need to train, and I need to talk to businesses, and I need to bring a whole lot of money on the table to the team to make this happen. But, you know, we're on a good way, but if I start lacking now, it might not happen, and I don't want to be that guy in the future who's thinking like, if I did this or did different, things would have been better. But so I'm going all in terms of effort and trying to make this happen. But on the sides, training, sim racing is part of my training, is part of my mental training, and in the iRacing Grand Prix in the World Championship, the level is so incredibly high that there is no better mental training than driving around Gregor Hutu and Hugo Lewis and Martin Kroenke, because if you make that one mistake, you will lose. They will beat you, and if you miss one corner or one braking point in that 2-hour race, they will overtake you. So it's the best training for your mentality. And of course, for the real car, I need some physical training more. But yeah, that's mostly the reason why I really want to keep driving. It's so important to not forget about my roots in sim racing, but also to keep working on my strengths.
Now, you talked about Richie a little bit as well, and how you helped him when he made that transition over to sim racing, running the 2012 iRacing.com Pro Series of road racing. But your teammates with some illustrious names. Of course, you've got Gregor Hutu, you've got the ever controversial Ben Cornett, Luke McLean, for example. How is that vibe in the team, and how much support have you got from them, not only through your sim racing career, but in that transition over to not just the racing, but the rest of it, the promotion, the talking to people, the interviewing, getting your name out there?
Well, the moment I started driving for Team Redline, a whole new world opened for me, and I kind of soon realized that there's so much more than just driving laps when you have a team around you with such icons as Luke McLean and Gregor Hutu and Ben Cornett. So this year we have Enzo Benito, the super talent, and you will see in the race how talented he actually is. This guy is amazing, and you push each other to higher levels, but also you learn from each other. So in driving wise, I've learned so much from Gregor. I've always tried to reach his level of consistency, and where I could challenge him in the qualification, often in a race, he was always this stable guy, always pulling lap times that are incredibly fast, but there is no mistake whatsoever in the race. So those guys, they are really a big inspiration for me, of course, and it makes me want to fight to get close to them or beat them. In terms of the team, with the promotion, with the connections, Richie brought me, of course, to big people, and I'm really grateful for that. And also in the team, you have a reputation in sim racing world, which really helps. So it's definitely something I'm really grateful for all the help. But the complete community has been incredibly helpful in terms of giving advice, linking me to people I should talk to. And, without this whole community, without this whole setup in the team, it would have never happened. So I'm really, it's amazing.
And A, do you think you can win the championship this year? B, if you can't win the championship, who do you think will be champion?
Well, first of all, if I could win the championship, that's a hard question. I don't, to be honest, I don't think my ability to drive as free as last year is there. So it will be hard for me to challenge for the championship, but you never know. And maybe now, when the pressure is off, I hopefully I perform a lot better. But I expect Hugo to be really quick again, and it should be. If you look at the statistics, it should be between Gregor and Hugo. And if I can drive enough races, I'll be happy to be up there. But since I'm missing the first race, I'll just be aiming to beat my my record of 2 race wins in the season. Let's make it 3 this season if I can fight for the championship.
Well, good luck for the 2014 campaign. Atze Kerkhof, from the living room to the cockpit. You can find out more about Atze by heading over to atzekerkhof.nl, and you can find more about Team Redline as well by going to teamredline.co.uk. Atze, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, man.
So that was Atze Kerkhof there, and our big interview for the week. We'll have one of those for each of the Racebots Presents WCS Spotlight podcasts that we do over the course of the season. We'll be talking to drivers and teams throughout the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. But Nick, really, when you think about the off-season journey that Atze has had, you really couldn't start anywhere else.
Oh, not at all. What an incredible opportunity that is in the F3 car as well. He was saying about the physical side of it, but even after a few hours of it, how it's sort of blended with how he drove in sim racing. So it is clear that the sim racing tools do cross over. It's obviously just that G-force and physical side that you have to adapt to. And quite honestly, at this point in time, I hope and wish him all the best, and that he does get that drive, but also that he does compete in the World Championship this year.
Right then, qualifying for the first round of the season is about to take place. Blake, final thoughts before we go off there. This is the first big test for these drivers because there were 50 drivers with WCS licenses. However, there's only 35 spots in the race. 15 people could be disappointed today.
Yes, absolutely. And every tenth, in fact, every thousandth of a second is going to count. If you gain a tenth, then that could be, maybe 5 or 6 grid spots gained. So it's quite important that everyone nails their lap times to perfection. Otherwise, there's going to be a few disappointed people.
And Nick, for those drivers that get good qualifying, then it's going to be a good start to the season. If you're at the rear of the grid, though, you can make up a lot of places at this track. Jeremy Booterloop actually had a phenomenal race in the second Spa race last year, coming from the rear of the field, finishing in P5.
Yeah, it's one of these tracks where, like I said to you before, the downforce levels, especially if you run a bit lower downforce and you're at the back of the field, you can really start to car your way through and have a lot of close racing, a lot of good racing as well. But I think it is critical for the top ends and the top name drivers to be closer to the front, especially to negotiate last source, as we were talking about before.
So, the first round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series is about 30 minutes away. And with that, it is time to say goodbye, but just for a little while. We'll be back on iRacing Live and PSRTV in less than 30 minutes time for the first round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Head over to iRacing.com/live right now. Get yourself ready for the race. I'll be there, Nick Rowland will be there, and we're going to make sure Blake Townend comes over there for a little bit as well. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time for episode 2 of the WCS Spotlight show. You can find out more about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series by heading over to WCS.iRacing.com. For myself, Wil Vincent, from Nick Rowland and Blake Townend, we'll see you all a little bit later on. Bye-bye.